What up YouTubers, Salvador Brigman here, and today I want to talk about some of the differences between Kickstarter and Patreon. So these are two great crowdfunding websites you can use to raise money if you're a creative type or if you're more of an entrepreneur and just trying to find a way to monetize what you're doing. A lot of people, YouTubers use them, a lot of podcasters use them, a lot of people like myself that are bloggers use crowdfunding as one way to actually monetize the audience that you've built up online. So today I want to get into some of the key differences between these two different websites. And I also want to get into, which is the best one for you? Which is the best one for those creators out there? I want to dive into that today. If you haven't already, go and check out some of the other videos that I have out there on YouTube on crowdfunding, on advice, ways to actually raise a crowd, ways to actually direct that crowd and monetize it with crowdfunding, ways to not only hit your fundraising goal if you're launching a campaign, but to also wildly exceed it. I regularly put out videos on these topics, so just hit subscribe if you want more notifications when I come out with videos in the future. So in order to understand the difference between these two websites, I first want to take you through the expectations when you're actually raising money and also what the process is like. So there are two ways that you can raise money. You can raise money for a really large project. You have a large fundraising goal, you're raising a bunch of money to complete that project, maybe like an independent film or a publishing project or something like that. You're raising a ton of money all at once, and then you're using that money to actually go out there and make this thing that you're promising everyone. Now that's a great model, but the only drawback here is that when you do that, you're gonna have to, if you need money again, go back to the crowd. You're gonna have to run another crowdfunding campaign, raise money again, and that way you can then go and create maybe another film or another project that you're working on. This is called traditional crowdfunding, but there's another type of crowdfunding which is called subscription-based crowdfunding, and that's where Patreon comes in. With Patreon, rather than having to raise money, for one big project, basically you're monetizing your audience and you're raising money from them on a continual basis. So you're raising money on a monthly basis. Every single month, they're not giving you a large amount of money like $100, they're giving you small increments of money, $5 to $25. So rather than raising money all at once for one project, you're raising money on a continual basis from your supporters and your fans. Now, when it comes to subscription-based crowdfunding, the pledging amounts are much smaller than on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. On Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you maybe can expect a $50 pledge. When it comes to Patreon, you're seeing people support at lower tiers because it does have that recurring feature. Now, at the same time, there are many similarities between Kickstarter and Patreon. You're going to have to offer rewards if you expect people to actually support your project and actually support the creations that you're making. So rewards are simply perks or things that you're offering if someone decides to pledge at a certain reward tier. So maybe with the Kickstarter campaign, at $100 or at $150, you're giving them some version of the product, or for $300, they're getting two versions of the product, or for example, some accessory that goes with the product. When it comes to Patreon, maybe for $25, they're becoming an inside member of your mastermind, or gaining exclusive content that you don't release on YouTube, or ultra long versions of podcast episodes with the full in-depth conversation and transcripts. You're basically using the perks or rewards to incentivize people and to thank them for supporting you as a creator. When it comes to Kickstarter, I think Kickstarter is really well known for not only allowing you to monetize your own crowd, but also as a way to tap into their existing marketplace. So Kickstarter actually has what are called super backers. So a super backer is regularly backing Kickstarter projects and Indiegogo projects. They're just an early adopter. They love to help people, but they also love cool new products and new things that are coming out, new gadgets and new gizmos. So Kickstarter has a built-in marketplace. It actually has a marketplace of these buyers, and you are in effect a seller. So it's sort of supply and demand, and in that way it forms a marketplace where if you launch a Kickstarter campaign in the right category with the right marketing, you can actually attract strangers. You can get strangers to support what you're doing, to buy in and actually pledge money to one of these reward tiers. Now, there isn't that same effect on Patreon, at least from what I've noticed with the different creators that I've spoken with. There really isn't that same marketplace effect. There's a little bit of spillover maybe, but nothing in the way that there is on Kickstarter. So what this means is you're going to basically be bringing your own crowd to Patreon. You can't expect Patreon to do the marketing for you. You have to bring your own crowd, your own fan base, the people that you've built up, that you've been creating content for, and you're using Patreon as a way to monetize your crowd, not to discover a new one. Now, I've talked a ton about launching an effective campaign on Kickstarter, particularly in my book, The Kickstarter Launch launch formula. I also occasionally run web classes. I put out YouTube videos. I have a podcast, a blog. There's a lot of content out there about how to engineer a Kickstarter campaign launch. And launch is a really good word for what a Kickstarter campaign is, because it's a limited duration in which you're raising funds. You're raising funds over the span of 30 days or 45 days. There's a limited amount of time to gain access to those early bird reward tiers. So there's a lot of urgency, and that's why we refer to it as a launch. You're basically assembling a lot of media, you're assembling a lot of PR, you're going out there and you're allocating your budget for Facebook ads, you're doing other ways to get traffic to your campaign, and you're doing this over a certain duration. The way that Patreon works is a little bit different. So it's not really as much of a traditional launch, while you can bake that in when you first unveil this Patreon campaign, but because it is subscription crowdfunding, it's basically always open for new funders. This means that if you have a podcast, if you have a blog, if you have a YouTube channel, you're always going to be plugging your Patreon campaign. You're going to be talking about what are the benefits of becoming a subscriber, why should people actually check out your Patreon campaign, where can they go, what link. You're always going to be plugging your link, kind of similar to you're always asking people to subscribe to your channel on YouTube. So rather than engineering for this one explosive launch, you're basically trying to work and seed in links to your Patreon campaign in the content that you release for free out there into the universe, into the web, into the ether. You're trying to get people slowly to start to trickle to your Patreon campaign and to discover it, and also to get some genuine, authentic responses from people in that community, so you can show why it's a great idea to actually join your Patreon campaign. As time goes on, you're going to build up more and more people that are subscribed to your campaign on Patreon, whereas with a Kickstarter campaign, if you really haven't engineered that launch properly, if you don't have the right marketing going, it's going to be really hard to salvage the campaign going forward on the 15-day mark or the 20-day mark. It has happened, don't get me wrong. You can do things like bring on a Facebook advertising company, you can do other ways to sort of bolster and boost your campaign, but it's definitely a lot harder, whereas with Patreon, it's sort of a slow growth in your subscribers and the amount of people that are regularly supporting your crowdfunding campaign. So as you can see, there are similarities, but there are also differences here. Similarities being creating a great pitch video, something that's going to make people interested in what you're doing, make you want to understand the benefits of supporting you, having those perks and rewards, having a great copywriting for your campaign page, and also doing great customer service and answering questions. There are those similarities. So when it comes to Patreon, I usually see YouTubers, podcasters, bloggers, people that are creating things on a very consistent basis. They tend to be a very good fit for Patreon, whereas if you're making a physical product, you're making a board game, you're making some other type of game, some kind of gadget or a gizmo or design product or fashion, that usually tends to be a better fit for Kickstarter. I hope that you've enjoyed this YouTube video, and if you have, give me a thumbs up, let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you want more videos like this. Leave a comment down below if you do have questions, but I also run a weekly crowdfunding tips newsletter where basically every single week I send out some free tips, some free advice for running a good crowdfunding campaign, one that actually raises money. So if you're interested in joining that, I'll also link that up in the description of this YouTube video. Go and check out some of my other content out there on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.